Welcome, everyone. I'm Andrew Meet Rich, and we've got some major developments across Europe and beyond that demand your immediate attention. I spent years working inside one of the biggest, most recognized media outlets, watching how they twisted stories to serve their agenda, and I decided I'd had enough. Now I'm completely independent, speaking without filters, and bringing you what actually matters. But first, let me ask you to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Your support means everything to an independent voice like mine, and if you truly believe in what we're doing here, consider becoming a channel sponsor. It's not just about the money, it's about standing together against the machine that wants to keep us all in the dark. Now let's dive into what's really happening. Ursula von der Leyen, head of the European Commission, just announced plans to slap tariffs on Russian oil imports into the EU, with the goal of completely cutting them off by year's end. And guess who she's targeting? Hungary and Slovakia, the two countries still buying Russian crude like it's business as usual. Here's where it gets interesting. Donald Trump had been pushing European countries to stop buying Russian energy resources, and he repeated this demand yesterday at the UN General Assembly. Von der Leyen's response? Trump is absolutely right. Word for word, that's what she said. Meanwhile, EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas is practically celebrating Trump's latest statements about Ukraine, having real chances to restore control over its territory within internationally recognized borders. Kallas called Trump's statement very strong and didn't hide her satisfaction. But here's what's fascinating about this whole dynamic. Over in Germany, after Trump's declarations, they're suddenly talking about how Europe needs to grow up, become more sovereign, and figure out what Europeans can achieve on their own. That's German Foreign Minister Jochen Wadefuhr speaking, expressing complete satisfaction that now there are opportunities to act independently. But wait, there's more. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz just announced that the country is facing one of the most challenging periods in its recent history amid global upheavals. He was presenting a record defense budget for next year in the Bundestag with unprecedented spending, specifically on defense. The tense international situation became the central theme of his address to lawmakers. And here's something you won't hear in mainstream coverage. Merz declared that Germany's climate policy will be without ideology, and climate protection that destroys the industrial base won't get public support. Meanwhile, German Chancellor Scholz's approval ratings continue their spectacular nosedive, with only 26% of Germans expressing satisfaction with his work. A whopping 62% are openly dissatisfied. Now here's what really caught my attention. Trump issued a warning to all of Europe that immigration and climate policies are destroying its heritage and leading to unprecedented catastrophe. European leaders? Radio silence. No comments whatsoever. But German analysts and experts, they're being critical, claiming Trump built his speech around himself and told other countries they'd fail if they didn't copy his policies. But then came the bombshell. Trump posted on social media, "We will continue to supply weapons to NATO so NATO can do with them what it sees fit. Good luck to everyone." Translation: the United States is stepping back and Europe will now be fully responsible for helping Ukraine and bearing all the costs. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent confirmed this today, stating bluntly, "The United States is not going to interfere in any military actions or any other situation. We will sell weapons to Europeans, and Europeans can transfer them, cut and dried. The U.S. is officially stepping aside. And speaking of stepping aside, if you're finding this coverage valuable, please hit that subscribe button and share this with everyone who needs to hear the truth." But nobody knows what Trump and Chinese leader Xi discussed in their recent, very lengthy conversation. What they decided about China, what deals were struck, time will tell. But the intrigue they've created is massive. There's no getting around it. Moving to Britain, they've created their own intrigue. Authorities announced the arrest of a suspect connected to last Friday's massive cyber attack that, as I previously reported, knocked out electronic check-in systems at 4 European airports. The National Crime Agency, that's what they call it there, announced they detained a man over 40 years old on Tuesday on suspicion of malicious use of computer systems, then unexpectedly released him under certain conditions. Who he is and where he's from, they're keeping quiet, but we'll see what they announce soon. Here's another fascinating development that's causing quite a stir. IAEA, Director General Rafael Mariano Grossi has already thrown his hat in the ring for UN Secretary General and is actively seeking Trump's support. He discussed his intentions with Secretary of State Rubio and Special Representative Witkoff when he came to Washington with a report on Iran. Grossi himself reported that he also discussed his candidacy with diplomats from the European Union and India. He needs everyone's support, as he stated in interviews. Current UN Secretary-General Guterres' term expires on December 31, 2026, so the first candidate is already positioning himself. Grossi isn't waiting to see if they'll offer him the position. And here's a detail worth noting. Earlier, Germany's Annalena Baerbock specifically hinted that a woman has never been UN Secretary-General, and this is unacceptable. Baerbock emphasized that in the 21st century, when women hold key positions in governments, corporations, and international organizations, the absence of a woman leading the UN looks like a lack of progress. The hint was concrete. There's a woman ready to take on any challenges and lead the UN, so the most interesting developments are still ahead of us. Now let's talk about the flotilla slowly making its way with humanitarian aid to Gaza. They're reporting new drone attacks. According to organizers, more than 15 drones circled over the ships, dropped unknown objects, jammed communications, and explosions were even heard on some boats. Activists declared, "We are not afraid. Every attack only strengthens our resolve." They called on the Greek Coast Guard to protect people and ships and appealed to world leaders at the UN General Assembly to take immediate action. Let me remind you of their stated goal: to break the Gaza blockade and deliver food, water, and medical supplies. On board are well-known activists, including Greta Thunberg and former Barcelona Mayor Ada Colau. The activists suspect Israel is behind the attacks, though there's absolutely no evidence whatsoever. But there's plenty of noise and panic. Italian Defense Minister Guido Crosetto has already ordered a military frigate to assist the humanitarian flotilla heading to Gaza after they reported the drone attacks. Commenting on the incident, Crosetto said Italian citizens are also aboard the flotilla ships and expressed strong condemnation of the attacks. "We're watching to see what happens next, but at the speed they're moving, they're still far from the finish line." But let's set aside all these complex matters for a moment. There are some interesting developments today that deserve attention. In Germany's wonderful capital, Berlin, something incredible is happening. Developer Kurt Krieger wants to invest 1 billion euros in building a new residential quarter. The plan is grandiose: 2,500 apartments, parks, kindergartens, schools, everything a city needs. But standing in his way aren't competitors or bureaucracy, but frogs. Real pond frogs, listed in the Red Book of Endangered Species. Krieger bought the land back in 2009, paid compensation to gardeners, and even relocated the frogs themselves. But green environmentalists are screaming in protest. The area where they moved the frogs turns out to be too small for them, and there are lizards nearby too. They're also protected. Now the construction issue is being decided in court. The thing is, in Berlin, major construction projects often clash with environmental organizations. According to Krieger, no project goes without court battles, but he's not giving up. He's been fighting for this site for 15 years and is still determined to build 30% social housing. And in the United States, they continue to surprise the world. At UN headquarters in New York, an unexpected voice rang out. 19-year-old Violet Affleck, daughter of world-famous Ben Affleck and Jennifer Garner, spoke to world leaders wearing a mask. And it wasn't just for show. She announced, "The pandemic isn't over," and called for the return of mandatory mask wearing in public places. You heard that right. She criticized adults for their desire to return to normal everyday life and loudly expressed dissatisfaction that the world is ignoring the ongoing pandemic. That's how things happen in our time. These are the informational moments for today that speak volumes about where we're heading. Before I wrap up, let me summarize the key points we've covered. Europe is being forced to shoulder Ukraine's burden as America steps back. Germany is facing internal crisis while trying to appear strong. Britain deals with cyber threats mysteriously. UN leadership battles are heating up, and activist flotillas create international incidents. Meanwhile, environmental regulations clash with housing needs, and pandemic rhetoric refuses to die. Write your opinions about everything that's happening. I want to hear what you think. And remember, if this independent analysis matters to you, hit that like button, subscribe, and consider becoming a sponsor. We're building something here that the establishment doesn't want you to have: the unfiltered truth. I wish you peaceful skies, and I'll see you tomorrow. Trust me, there's always something important to share with you. Take care, everyone.